Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer 2023. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2023. You can join us virtually June 12th through 14th, or come visit us in Cincinnati on July 27th and 28th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Aloha, I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We're bringing the tips and tricks in your everyday work as an instructional coach to help you out with that, or whatever they call you in your school district.
Yes, so hopefully you're going to leave this episode feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
All right, well, the main question here is, have you heard of ChatGPT?
Who hasn't right now, Justin?
Right? Obviously, this is a name that is out everywhere in the education world right now. So what started as a mention has now encompassed the entire realm of education. This new AI, or artificial intelligence product, can do wonders, from writing you a song to creating essays, lesson plans, and more. But we want to dive in and figure out exactly what is it and how coaches can harness the power to assist their instructional planning and help educators find ways to utilize their lessons while working around any worries that they have. So that's what we're going to do to take a look here in the Restart Recharge to hopefully get you a little bit of an answer with that. And we have an excellent guest with us here today. We have Matthias Holza, and Matthias is an instructional design coach currently working here at Forward Edge in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he assists teachers with implementing new strategies, curating EdTech tools, and helps admin achieve building and district goals. Prior to his current role, Matthias taught foreign language for 10 years from the kindergarten to university levels, and has served as the president of the Kentucky chapter of American Association of Teachers of German. He has also had the chance to present at multiple world language conferences, as well as the Bluegrass Intelligent Colloquium. He holds a Master of Arts in Teaching from Northern Kentucky University, a Master of Arts from the from Transylvania University in sociology. And then outside of teaching, Matthias spends his time coaching high school soccer or tinkering in his workshop. And it is very important that we mention this, but Matthias is German, right?
Indeed. I forgot myself when I was writing that. I'm so sorry.
Grew up in Germany until you went to undergrad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we are so happy to have you as a first of many, I'm sure, on the podcast, Matthias. So welcome.
I am so excited to be here. This has been something I've been looking forward from the very beginning.
Awesome.
Excellent. So you are here with us, and you're going to be the one that's chatting with us about this kind of abstract idea, but it's everywhere today. So we're talking a little bit about ChatGPT, but also we want to just make sure that for our listeners out there, we kind of really understand where that comes from, and it comes from this idea of artificial intelligence, or AI. So can you give us just kind of a little bit of an idea of what exactly AI is, because it's something that's probably used a lot more than people might even think.
So when we think of AI, there are several different ways that we've already encountered things that might be AI already. There are little pre-steps that we might have encountered along the way to getting ChatGPT today. So you might have seen, do you remember when you had to log into a website and it gives you a quick human test to see whether you are not a robot, and it asks you to recognize pictures?
You mean the ones I always fail?
Yeah.
You and me both.
Like, tell me where you can see a car versus a fire hydrant and stuff like that.
Right.
That's already been used to teach AI, right? And when you pick up your phone and you start writing a text message, does it give you suggestions of what the next word would be?
My Gmail does.
Gmail does, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pretty accurately.
My text message do, but it's never what I want.
Those are the early steps of AI. Those are some of the things that AI has already done on the way to becoming ChatGPT.
Okay.
But in order to fully understand it, there are a lot of components, and AI can look very different depending on how you're using it and how you taught it to operate. Coming in here, I was going to suggest, if anybody's interested, do you want to learn how to build your own AI? I can give you instructions. 5 steps. Super easy.
Give it to us,
sure.
Matthias.
I feel like if we understand how it operates, we can understand what its limitations are, which we think of it as being so human.
Can I ask a question
course.
before you tell us how to build it? So when you say like it and it's learning, is there like this one AI network that things are pulling from? Or it's like I would build my own AI and it is separate from like a Google
Like an
search searching
individualized-
all of AI out there?
So there's two components that you would have to start with. You have to think of what am I going to give it to learn from? What kind of data do I start with?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
oftentimes it's a step of scraping as much text from the internet as possible. That would be books, articles, maybe some human interactions and forums, and those CAPTCHAs I mentioned earlier before,
Yes.
right? And then you would have to start thinking of how is this program that I want to create going to be designed? And you call that a neural network, supposedly, where you have layers and it is trying to learn by making a mistake.
But so it's my own neural network that I would be building if I am building
Yeah.
my AI. So ChatGPT is its own neural network that may be separate
Yeah.
from another AI system out there.
And it lives on a cluster of computers or servers where they have all of the data stored, and it does a lot of calculations, a lot of the same stuff over and over again really, really fast.
Okay.
And that's kind of what it does when it learns. So the hardest
I
part
feel like
to-
my neural network is like grasping
Yeah,
this
like-
now. Neurons are forming.
Perfect. And that's the hardest part, I think, in order to make this in order to not get into the weeds. The software part, the algorithm, that is the hardest part. I say for this, we just put our witches hats on, put a cauldron in the middle. We're going to throw in a couple of algorithms, a library, functions, classes. We mix this all together. We throw in a little thing called tensor. And then after that, we have pretty much that network that is able to learn by making a mistake and adjust its behavior and recognize patterns really, really well.
Okay, so now I'm picturing Winifred, Sarah, and Mary Sanderson in Hocus Pocus mixing up an AI network now.
That is perfect. That is exactly where I want you to go.
Yeah.
See, that's good. I always think of when I think of like AI, I think of with like Iron Man and like the Avengers, because that's kind of what Jarvis is, right? He's AI and he's learning, and then when they implement Ultron, right, he learns very quickly and then goes the more destructive route and things. So like that's kind of how my mind goes to it, maybe more so than the witches.
So
Yeah.
You're kind of looking at me like, what are you even talking about right now?
A little bit, Justin, but I think I know what the first Jarvis is. I think I know him.
first
You know
of
what I'm
all,
talking about, right?
I
Okay.
deeply appreciate the Marvel reference right here. I'm very happy about that.
So what's this tensor? And if it's too in the weeds, because we just want to kind of get an initial understanding, but you said the last like dash of tensor, you said, what is that from a high level?
Think of it as a rule or a set of rules for the AI to learn from. So when initially we put the AI in front of that data and it just tries to recognize patterns. And that's
Okay.
called actually unsupervised learning,
Okay.
which I think as an ID coach, I very much appreciate that term. So it learns to recognize patterns in the data first. And then in the next step, we try to give it a little bit of instruction. So we tell it to maybe recognize sentences or structures or pictures or certain things in that direction. And that's when we start giving it a couple more instructions. And those libraries, those rules, those functions on that give it some more instruction, that would be TensorFlow, for example. That is one of those things.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's dive a little bit more with ChatGPT. We've talked a little bit about it, but as Katie mentioned, it's kind of on its own neurological network. But what exactly is it, and what are some of the functions that you have seen done with it so far?
So what it does really well is it recognizes patterns extremely great and in a great set of data. So we have been slowly but surely scaling that amount of data and fine-tune the ways that it has been learning, which has made it which has made it very good at understanding human speech, understanding the implicit parts of our speech, where we might have a computer look closer at certain parts of the sentence to figure out what exactly you're looking for in the answer. It has gotten really good at creating sentences that sound human to us, and it can synthesize all of that information it has in the background to then create solid guides for us humans to follow and learn from.
As
In my
humans.
My understanding, Mateus, is that it's really meant to be like dialogue more so, like it's not a Google search.
Yeah.
right? Like I tried to ask it to write me a paragraph describing Forward Edge because I was super curious what it would say. And it couldn't because it couldn't access the internet. And unfortunately, we do not exist in whatever encyclopedia it's been fed to learn.
Not yet.
So it didn't know who we were. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. So ChatGPT specifically has been designed to be a assistant in the sense that it can understand what you're asking it to do, and it can do it in a way almost a human would do it.
So give us some examples of like what you've played around with and what you've seen some other people play around with.
So the immediate response of almost everybody that I talk to has been to try to have the AI create text for you, which is super exciting, right? We want to hear it make a little like poem or a little short story. But if you keep extending that and you start thinking about what can I ask it to do, I have used it to just learn new skills. I remember the first time I ever used it, I wanted to use create a Excel spreadsheet, and I didn't know the exact function I needed to use. So I just asked ChatGPT, well, hypothetically, if I want to pull this data from this column and have it here and do this to it, how would I do that? And it just spit out the correct answer and the code I wanted to use. So I kept playing around with it a little bit more, and I learned that if I give it more information, such as the exact column and the exact name of the sheet, it would create an even better answer.
Right.
So you keep playing with it, and you learn that it can give you far more than just answers and instructions. It can also start taking the info that I gave it, such as meeting notes. I was sitting in a meeting with my principal, and I was recording it, and I had a transcript of the meeting. So I then copied it, pasted it in ChatGPT, and I asked it to tell me what are my top 3 action items I need to take, and how should I schedule my next week to do it. And it blocked out days for my research that I had to do, for the exact tasks I needed to do by day in order to reach every single one of my tasks on time. And you keep exploring and you go further and further.
My head is literally brain exploding emoji. My neural network can't take much more. That's awesome. I've seen people using it too, just to write like emails. Especially, I know we've had some folks on the team practice with like a difficult parent email, let's say, or like inspiration for a blog post or whatnot. So, Matthias, I love that you're super advanced with the spreadsheet. I don't know that I can even wrap my head around how to ask it some of those things.
Yeah,
right
I agree.
now.
That's what I was saying. He's saying that. I was like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I love it. I'm like
think
trying to get there.
My favorite part is actually I'm learning how I'm communicating with the AI is changing over time. At first, I initially started to feel bad when I asked it to do extra tasks. When I thought like, oh no, I don't have to do this myself. AI, don't worry about that. And I felt guilty, but now I'm realizing, no, it doesn't care. It'll do the job for me with the exact way I want it to, and I have to worry about it being overwhelmed with my quest.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. So obviously, we're talking about how it is conversational and it writes text and all of these different things that it can do, as you just said, very well, without any complaining. So thinking about that in the context of education, obviously, I think when we say AI, Justin, I forget the bad guy example, but, AI,
Ultron.
Ultron going the wrong direction, right? Like AI in general makes people a little nervous from the learning standpoint and will this be bad, right?
Yeah.
But I would say as like a sector, I feel like education's got to be the most concerned with this technology. So how might you think about addressing some of those concerns that educators have about students no longer submitting original work and their original work because the text itself is original work, right? It's not copying and spitting out, and it won't give the same 2 people the same prompt. So the ChatGPT text that is spit out is original work. So Turnitin.com, different plagiarism reports aren't going to detect that the student has plagiarized. So education's nervous. Our coaches listening to this know that. Their teachers are probably freaking out a little bit if they're aware of and have heard about this. So talk about some of those concerns and how we might begin to address some of those.
I think plagiarism is obviously the first thought that all of us had as soon as we saw that there's this chat box you can throw in a task in and it'll create a story for you. And while I think that that is an issue and that is something that we need to worry about and we need to definitely adjust as we're moving on in education, in the long term, there have been so many different ways that we have been challenged in terms of plagiarism that we have adjusted to, that I don't think that this is an immediate concern. I mean, we have seen the rise of Google and Wikipedia get worries up in us and worry about what does that mean for our students. I think what we need to remember is that OpenAI has a huge incentive to also make sure that whatever data they produce is going to be watermarked. So OpenAI is working on watermarking it. So in the context of wanting to make AIs better, we need to have good data, and OpenAI wants to make sure that it can separate whether something on the internet is created by itself or whether it's created by humans. Otherwise, the AI models won't be as good. So OpenAI is very motivated to make sure that they have an AI checker and a watermark in there. In the long term, there will be ways to recognize AI production as opposed to human production. Do we need to adjust in the long term? In the short term, absolutely. In the long term, there will be easier ways to do.
When you say long term, like this is not founded in anything other than like the market is there now for something to come up with an address like an AI checker. And so I see that being like, hey, put our emphasis on this because we're going to make a lot of money if we sell this to schools. So when you say long term, like how long term are you thinking? Because I would think we're going to start seeing something like within a year.
Yes,
I would have to think, if not even sooner.
I agree. And like long term is also relative. This is, I mentioned this over and over again, this is somewhat somewhat similar to our experiences when the internet coming up for the first time. There are so many things that we don't even know we need rules for. And we as a human society have been watching the internet become a thing, and we had to make rules and adjust rules and change rules. Same thing is going to happen with AI. But when I say long term, what is so intense to me is I don't know what long term really means. It could literally be just a year. If you compare the amount of users that were accumulated by Spotify, for example, when it just came out, it took 3 months to get, I don't know the exact number, a certain number. It took OpenAI only 3 days to catch up with Spotify in terms of user rates.
Yeah, yesterday when I pulled up ChatGPT, which on the day we're recording this, that would have made it Friday or Thursday, January 12th. It was down. You couldn't even use it, and you had to like put it in, for them to notify you because their servers are just so overloaded.
I think that when we worry about plagiarism, which is obviously the first thought, I think what we need to really think about in the long term is what do we tell our students about the meaning of ownership of my work, my writings, pride in my own ideas and expressing them well, that it's not just about the concept of writing something for writing something, but for the purpose of learning and for expressing my own ideas. It's that same expression about chasing the learning rather than the task. And AI can help you finish the task. AI can also help you learn. And that's what we need to put our focus in. But when it comes to what education is nervous about and what I think is something we need to keep in mind is bias. I think our ideas of AI and what we think it does and what it doesn't do, there are so many inherent biases in the AI that we need to be aware of, such as, I mean, the data that it was practicing with is human generated, but the question is which humans?
Which humans put that in there?
Who is represented? And that is something that we want to be extremely careful with when we talk with children and students. I also heard that someone referred to AI as a cheater.
A cheater?
A cheater. It cheats.
It cheats.
Because it is so good at recognizing patterns. There was an example where they used X-rays for mammograms to figure out whether the AI can recognize maybe cancer quicker than a human eye would. And it actually did really well. They practiced on a set of data from one hospital, and it did great. It predicted it really well. And then as soon as you added data from another hospital, it crashed. It didn't do so well, and we didn't understand why. It turns out that it wasn't looking at the actual mammogram like data that was in there. It kept looking at the little tag on the top left or top right corner of the X-ray, recognizing the information from the tag from what it said on there. So it recognized that pattern. We thought it was doing great, but it recognized a completely different pattern we didn't even know.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't cheat, but it is it can get distracted, I would say.
Oh my gosh, I'm like really struggling to wrap my mind around some.
I also, okay, here's my favorite thought. Someone said that AI is a liar. And I would like to fight that opinion. I disagree with that.
Address it here.
Here we go.
There we go.
But I have to, in order to do this accurately, I need to know, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
If
don't
it's
wanna
like
be
the
explicit.
SD or A word, probably not more than that, or we'll get marked explicit.
What if it's...
Or the H.
Well,
Tyler's the only one that's done that so far, and he didn't even say anything. But
Yeah.
well, what if it is the title of the book I'm referencing?
Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
sure there's
No.
going to be. I'm sure there's going to be a bleep. Okay, there's a book called On Bullshit by Frankfurt, and he talks about the difference between someone who tells the truth and someone who tells a lie. And the thing that the two have in common is that they always are rooted in truth. The truth teller will always come from a point of truth because that's what they want to convey, and the liar will always have to address the truth. The problem is AI is neither of them. AI is a bullshit. AI doesn't understand what the truth is. It just gives you an answer to give you an answer. And it gives you answers that might not be correct, but are answers that you want to hear. It's worse than a liar. It doesn't know that it's lying. So when we are creating text, we need to be aware of the fact that it doesn't quite understand what it's doing itself.
I almost feel like this is another movie reference. But the newest Blade Runner, isn't that? Have you seen the newest Blade Runner?
have seen
Isn't
the
that
newest Blade
what
Runner.
Joy is literally feeding because it's the pattern, right? That the main character, Ryan Gosling's character, has is that these memories, they aren't actually his. You find out at the end. Spoiler alert! Probably should have said that at the beginning. But
Got to put that in the episode description.
right? Yeah, exactly. But isn't that because it's not that she doesn't necessarily know that it's true or not, but she's just feeding what he wants to hear.
Yeah, that's the AI only deals with the data that it has, and it can only interpret it to some extent. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's important for educators to know. Less like scary AI.
Yeah.
I
Let's
bring
go for
it
the
back
positive notes.
to education. I think to like something for educators to get excited about. Rachel Porter on our team shared that YouTube video of AJ Giuliani talking about the 7 ways educators can use AI, and a couple of ideas that he shared. I was just so excited about the potential for educators to use. In particular, he shared how you can, basically give it a lesson or a topic you're talking about and add it to incorporate like UDL framework into it, right? And then it gives you these ideas. He talked about creating a cross-curricular lesson, which I think will help education become so much more relevant because it's the only box where we do this siloed content for 45 minutes and then 5 minutes later you're doing this siloed content and nothing is really connected well. I don't know. And the ability to, Mateus, you're addressing the bias, which is absolutely, we need to think about the information and where it's coming from and who's representative when we're building those neural networks. But I think the ability for educators to use this tool to address inequities in the classroom and essentially duplicate yourself and what you have the time for. I mean, differentiation is like this lofty goal that everyone who goes into education, like we believe we're going to do that, right? And then we see educators getting overwhelmed with all of these other things they have to do, and like the reality of the education landscape today, the vast differences in like background and ability that students are coming to them in their classrooms today. I just like that made me so excited as like, there's a lot of tools that say they're going to help educators and make their life easier. I feel like that is the first example I've seen that's like fundamentally, or at least seen in a while, like fundamentally transforming, supporting educators in a way that truly makes their lives better, in a way that will truly allow them to impact and support students.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think the biggest strength that AI offers us is that it can shave so much time out of our daily routine, out of the things that we used to have to worry about. Like, it can help us potentially with grading, which would be huge. It can help us with lesson plan creation, idea creation. It can help us with research. All of these things that I always worried about when I said to admin or anyone else, like, oh, I don't know about giving our teachers the impression that we're putting something else on their plate. I don't know about worrying about this because they already have so little time. This is something that will potentially give us so much time back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And last thing I'll say before I break us to the sponsor break, I'll leave this one here. But I do just feel really strongly that for I don't mean to undercut or like not give credence to like very real concerns, particularly with, safety. And Mateus, I think you said it really well. Like, we don't even know the rules that we need to be putting in place just yet. So like, let me just kind of like flag that caveat. Like, I understand that. I don't mean to totally dismiss that. But I think if our gut instinct is to just ignore, block, like, we are only making school more irrelevant for these children who have very real access to these tools, or creating wider inequity gaps for our students who may only have access to these tools at school in comparison to kids. If we're blocking them from it, then they get no access where we have other students. So anyway, I hope our schools are not going to make school more irrelevant by just like blocking and not addressing and not figuring it out. And Michael Rausch, our most quoted coach on the podcast, he sent a tweet the other day, and he just kills me anyway with his quick wit. But he said something like, I'm hearing a lot of teachers talk about how much easier ChatGPT is making their life, but it's cheating for their students. But we put in like, give me this lesson frame, give me an outline of how I might teach this. That's not cheating, right? Like, that's helping support us. But it's cheating if the students put something in and submit it to us. So I just, let's remember that as we go into this quick sponsor break.
Who is in your coach community? The EDU Coach Network is a professional learning community designed specifically to help instructional coaches connect, learn, and grow together. With free and paid options available, there's a space for all coaches in the EDU Coach Network. Join today and access coaching content that will help you impact teaching and learning in your school. Go to www.educoachnetwork.com to join.
Instructional coaches support teachers, students, administrators, and really everyone in the district. In fact, research shows that instructional coaching is one of the most impactful forms of professional development that results in improved teacher instruction and student achievement. But who is supporting the coach? Forward Edge provides multiple year-long mentorship options recommended by the Google for Education Certified Coach Program to help you gain the valued support you need as an instructional coach. Visit forward-edge.net to start giving PD to the ultimate PD providers. All right, welcome back, everyone. Justin Thomas here with Katie Ritter on the Restart Recharge podcast. We have Mateus Hulza, the German expert in AI, joining us here today, and we're talking about ChatGPT. But before break, Katie talked about, everyone was talking about how there's a lot of teachers that might be a little on the fence, a little nervous about some aspects, but there's so many amazing things that we've done as teachers that we should open up for our students. So we want to kind of put this in a positive light, right? So what are some ways that coaches can help teachers see the positives and the excitement around ChatGPT or AI in general, and really kind of change that narrative to be more of a positive outlook to actually be able to be used by everyone?
Absolutely. And I think I have a couple of good tips.
Okay.
And the way that I approach it, I'll gladly share. I always try to open up by talking about the time-saving benefits of it, because this truly should be the hook. When you realize how much time you'd be saving on lesson planning, I think that's how you wow them. You show them how it can create lesson plans, how it can help you with differentiation, and give them a lot of feedback on how to create ideas and use the ChatGPT specifically for that. But you hook them, I think, with the ability to like summarize notes, to give it a little bit of input and give you feedback or summarizations of it. And the last and final thing when it comes down to saving time, I always say it can teach you things rather than using it as a voice finder, which is also cool. But using it as a writing coach, because if you use ChatGPT, it will automatically do the work for you. But if you tell it specifically, you are a writing coach, I am your student, I want you to read this input and give me specific instructions on how to be better, then it will not just change the text for you, but rather it'll give you instructions like a teacher would, which would be much more interactive. And you can then start asking it further question, well, why would I do it this way? Or explain to me what the benefit of this change would be.
Yeah, so back to your point of like, you can learn things.
Yes, right. That would be a great way of using it. Sorry.
Okay.
Then after that, address concerns. That's my next step, because we talked about bias. We talked about how we need to be aware of what our students are exposed to. But I would also point out data privacy. The amount of access that the ChatGPT has right now is one way. It has some access to the internet, but what if it starts having access to more, and we can ask it about specific people and their expression on the internet? Rules will change. Rules will change along the way because we don't know them yet. And anybody that has the inclination of throwing student data with recognizable information into the chatbot, please stop them. That sounds like a terrible idea. I don't know why you would throw student information that is identifiable into the chatbot.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah. Good little asterisk there.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Okay, well, Mateus, we end every episode with top 3 tips. But before I dive in to ask you about your top 3 tips, is there anything else that you'd want to say for our educator listeners, or, specifically with our instructional coach audience, or the main folks that tune into the pod here? Just anything else on the topic before your top 3 tips? Don't give them away.
Absolutely. I really actually liked your point, Katie, earlier about if we start blocking this tool that we are obviously comfortable using as adults. I also have a big issue with the fact that we would start locking students out. In my personal opinion, the only people that are actively locked out of something by the district are usually the teachers and not the students. Because if the students communicate, they work it out, they will find a way.
That is such a good point.
I don't think I ever had to help a student get access to Netflix, but I would have to work hard to help a teacher get Netflix on their computer. But it's not that they don't get access. It's going to become a matter of who has the money to afford a smartphone with a data plan. And then it's not becoming about who has access anymore, but who has the money to get access.
Yep.
So I really agree with you on making sure that we give access to those tools that we would be using in the future too.
Love it. Okay, well then let's dive in. What would be your top 3 tips for utilizing ChatGPT or AI overall in our schools?
So the first piece of advice I would give is that it is the wild, wild west right now on the internet with artificial intelligence. There's lots of opportunity, very few rules. And humans adjust to rules in the tech space slower than the tech starts evolving. We need to keep in mind that if I would take you, for example, right now, and I'd just throw you into the 1990s, right?
Okay.
I'll throw you back in time from this podcast right now. Would you...
I look forward to staying home from school and watching Saved by the Bell in Dawson's Creek.
And Price is Right. But I do that still now on days off anyways. But
Sorry.
I love that. I love the priorities.
You paint really great pictures of what's happening.
Yes. We're already there. We're already
Yeah.
we're
All
ready
right.
to go.
I'm back in the 90s.
But would you be mad at me, or would you say thank you, Mateus, for throwing you back into the past and making you rich by realizing how much you can do with the internet that people don't even realize yet? Right? If I would be able to go back and take advantage of that, then I would want to take the most out of the internet. We are at a similar place and time again. There is a huge technological breakthrough. Don't give up on it. Stay involved in it. And that's, I think, what we need to really keep in mind. It took forever for us to even get slightly better about codifying issues about privacy and net neutrality on the internet. It's going to take a long time for us to understand AI and what rules we need.
Well, I'm excited. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I'll
please.
make it quick so you don't lose your train of thought on number 3. But I'm excited for what could be with education, particularly curriculum programs with AI. I just think if it can learn, then it could learn and tailor to that individual student for true in the moment support to push our students who need extra work and they're ready for that next level, to meet our students who aren't quite on grade level yet and give them their level of appropriate tasks, and to individualize feedback and support if they are getting it wrong, and to really understand what resource will help this student who's here in this moment. So we see that I feel like we're seeing how you said we've been seeing like little introductory AI, like the CAPTCHA and different things, and that's kind of like building AI. I feel like Google's practice sets, while not quite AI, I feel like that's kind of the mentality, right? Of like, if I get the wrong answer in the moment, it will give me this resource related to this skill. And again, that's not quite AI making that happen. They're like pre-vetted resources, but that feels very like a preview of what could come. So anyway, I like your advice to stay involved because I think it's super exciting for while education might be the most scared right now, I think it has huge like future implications to like help our teachers in the moment with students.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And that actually leads me to the next point. I think because AI is going to start appearing everywhere in all of our production, like productivity suites, like both Google Workspaces and Microsoft will have it included at some point in time. It's going to go and appear in our drive-thrus, in our toasters. My piece of advice is, you don't trust it. I mean, okay, I'm not throwing us back into the Cold War, but I mean, trust but verify is a very good rule for AI, in my opinion, right? I mean, it's okay for it to generate information, and it's good for us to use it and start off, but it's always a starting point. It should never be where we end. It should be a starting point and never end.
That's funny.
You said we're going to 90s, not like the 80s.
Oh, I've been all over the place. We've been witches. We've been in the 90s. We've been on a road with.
We really have been on a story road today. Well, I think it's how you said we're going to start seeing it everywhere. Brooke Conklin, frequent podcaster who we just had on the episode actually last week. She threw in our Slack channel for the company about AI and education. AI is embedded in Canva.
Absolutely.
So I haven't had a chance to check it out, but for those coaches, maybe ChatGPT is a little over your head, like I'm feeling at this very minute. But dive into Canva to get a little taste of it to see how it can help you.
And there's lots of different ways that you can include it, and that's my actual last point. My last piece of advice is there are so many different tools. There are so many different ways that you can include it right now, that you include AI in your work. A good website that I would recommend is actually futuretools.io. It has you can click and start searching for different tools that are AI related or not AI related sometimes, but you can even look for picture imaging versus text imaging. But for those advanced users, check out the different tools such as Tome to make presentations.
Spell that.
Tome.
Okay.
And then the long term for AI and AI usage, what you would want to research and learn about is prompt engineering. So a big part of AI is we want to make sure we get the best possible answers. So a piece of advice in prompt engineering might be tell the AI who it is first, tell it who you are, and tell it what its purpose is, and then give it the information to work on. And these are the kind of rules that we are learning as we're going through this.
Yeah. So give me an example of what you mean. I think I know what you mean, but just to flesh it out, give me an example of what you say, like tell it who they are or what it is.
Okay. In a classroom environment, what I would suggest using it for is as a voice finder, for example. I will take a whole bunch of my writing, different kinds of writing pieces, articles, whatever I wrote, and then I'm going to tell it, you will be a writing coach. You're going to look over my assignments that I've written, my articles, and you're going to write a quick summary what my writing style would be described as. So then it'll read that text. It'll give you a quick summary. I told him, this is your job. This is what you do. Please give me a response. Once you have that response, I use that voice finder, that little description. You can take that, go into the AI playground, which is slightly different from ChatGPT, but gives you more opportunities. And you can adjust it and teach the AI to behave and write like you, like your writing style, based off of that. Because it'll start saying that you're right in this particular sense, very matter of fact, very something rather, and then it'll start recreating your sense of writing.
Wowzers. Okay, throw that in the cauldron too. Yeah. And I think on that, my head has officially exploded. And that might be all we can take about this AI here today, Justin.
Okay, all right, well, we better end it before things get too out of control here. But Mateus, thank you for joining us here today.
No, this has been wonderful.
Apologize.
Don't be sorry. You're blowing my mind. I'm getting very educated.
Yeah, so plenty of amazing ideas and some really good tips there at the end too, and kind of how you can really use AI and ChatGPT and go forward. If you're a coach helping teachers kind of understand what it is and how
I
we can use it a
know.
little bit more. And
I don't think even my Botox could keep my eyebrows down on that last one.
and also using it to ease your own life as well. Well, we have next time out here on the podcast. We got several good episodes coming up. We're going to have one. We're all going to TCA. We're going to have a discussion kind of on some of the sessions, what we've learned from that. We also have another one coming up as well in terms of kind of how you can, as a coach, make sure that you are able to kind of have your time and showcase that you're doing some amazing things with the time, while also not like pushing boundaries with teachers, especially if you're at some of those smaller districts where you're seeing the same people like every single day. But we got some good episodes all coming up, so make sure that you're still listening to the Restart Recharge.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe when this episode airs, Justin, that our coaches camp, you heard an ad for the early bird pricing, is ending in March. So be sure to register for Coaches Camp if you haven't yet. And with that, I think that wraps us up here. So be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on all the social media at RRCoachCast.
And feel free to reach out to us too if there's any topics that you want us to discuss. We are more than happy to listen in and see if there's another way we can help you.
So press the restart button.
Call us the ChatGPT here.
I know, I was trying to think of a joke and I couldn't, so I just went with the closing line.
And then I jumped in. But all right, so take 2.
Press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.